morning, colleagues. I see is searching for its whole life. Somebody with IT can help. I think let me take from what Debu said and the colleague there who's at water traffic. That I think this is the platform we've got, the diversity of stakeholders. It's very appreciated, and also probably why we must have this session and have what we call a strategy is to ensure that we do coordinate each other. We've got a problem of government can't coordinate itself. Now we want to coordinate external stakeholders, and it's a problem that we see within the government systems, and probably it's part of what we call developmental challenges, because we all want to do something, but we all want to shine as we do what we're supposed to do. If all of us, we can just try to focus in one thing, government priorities, then we work together and get private sector to come and assist government to develop the sector. I'm hoping these things doesn't want me to project. It will be a problem if I'm not. I can talk because I see. I know other people can't see. I'm standing here as probably the person who tends to take a flag from the department about non-activities and non-support in the between Kigen and Abongile. I struggle between those two guys because each and every guy wants me to mention is either aquaculture or fisheries, and they always, now I want to talk about aquatic food resource now, so that I don't talk any other thing, so that I don't offend any of them. Because I tend to offend them, because if I focus on aquaculture, there's a problem. Abongile is not happy. If I focus on Abongile, Kigen is not happy. Now probably I want to find the way to say, is it a reality in aquatic food resources? I think from our side as the province, this is one thing that we're focused on. We see aquaculture and fisheries as economic activities that their main purpose is to provide food, either to the community or to the world. If we achieve that part of getting those two subsectors that become aquatic food resources, is something that's got to do with connection, because you cannot find it there. If you can find that working, it means most of our problems can be sorted, because we've worked so very hard in developing the agricultural sector as a province. And having this under the agriculture sector, I know when it comes to actual calculation of national economic contribution, all the both sectors are calculated under agriculture. They tend to say it's an AFOLO sector, which is, that's why it become part of agriculture. And within us as agriculture, we've got a responsibility of rural development. We are called Rural Development and Agrarian Reform. We were given that for a purpose. We are getting closer, and I'll duplicate this slide. We're getting closer to getting that correct, because now we are Rural Development and Agrarian Reform. We must make sure all our efforts end up in the developing the community, develop the rural space, and having rural economy growing, which is most of the efforts that we want to do, must make sure that we do contribute into issues of value chain development. We speak of value chain development in our space. Kigen is doing too many things in this computer now. When it comes to issues of value chain development, we're looking at market access, efficiency, production efficiencies along the chain, integrating we'll say in this case, small scale producers, be it farmers, small scale aquaculture farmers, or small scale fisheries. They must be integrated in the value chain, and they must participate in the value chains. Let's stop to do what we say, it's a black market. No, these black markets are not really sustainable. There is, or the one that is only sustainable is one of cannabis. That one of cannabis is sustainable. We shop about it. But others, they don't become sustainable. Okay. But I can't stay in my screen. Someone must duplicate. Oh. Okay. Then I'm saying that if value chain integration, access to markets, improve productivity, then that's where you start to talk about value chain developments. If we're developing value chains, as we'll be developing these two aquatic food resources, we must make sure that all these are applicable. It must be a competitive sector that we're developing. You don't want to develop a sector for the sake that tends to rely on government for its operations. When we talk of food security must have access, which is people must get food where they are sitting. If they can produce food, it's one thing that we like to see. They must start to talk about the food must be nutritious, that's what the fish products are known for their nutritive value. The food must be affordable, and that food must be safe. You don't talk food security if all those four things are not there, that's why government will provide most of the services to get into all this, because there are all other things that must comply with, regulatory things that may ensure food security. Then we need sustainable livelihoods. The livelihoods can be sustainable if they are diverse. We start to introduce aquatic food resources. We diversify what people are already doing. They are planting their veggies, they are going to get their wild fruits, getting that, and now we introduce what is a new kind of food system, which is start to diversify their livelihoods. Let's develop human capital in those communities, which is all what we must do and try to achieve is some of these that are returned, these stretch outcomes of the department. I'm trying to put everyone, if we are to all come together, if we try to achieve these things, that's what the department wants to achieve. And the sustainable natural resources is part of these things. And it will become very nice if we can rally our minds and energies behind these outcomes. It gives us something to work towards, and it tries to attract us into a certain focal point, and we know what we must achieve. And if we manage to all of us to be part of this, then the province will definitely develop, and this aquatic food resource system sector will really thrive. This is a map that I normally say, if you look at the province, we tend to talk about lots of poverty. If you look at the map there, it just shows us how the poverty spread across the province. This map is formed from all the colored, the orange or red. Those are the top poorest wards within the province. But I would like, only thing that is interesting, it's either they form a cluster or they form a corridor. It's how most of the communities have developed. You see there's a very strong corridor that moves from Alwal North to Port Alfred. They are all clusters around the coast. If you look at now, I think people are small-scale fishery cooperatives, they find themselves in those clusters of poverty. Now it's how you use what government legislation, what government offerings to change the situation, because we can't be talking poverty to this level. We look at the province as from the actual point of view, for food production point of view, that the Eastern Cape has the second largest households participating in agriculture. With all that information, participating in all various commodities, but you still have the highest number of households involved, the highest number of households that remain food insecure. If you've got 508 households participating in agriculture activities, but 408 of them, in total of 1.7 million households in the province, they are food insecure, which is almost close to 30% of our households are food insecure. And this is a challenge that government is looking to address. Then, as we look to address this, which is this sector has to contribute to change the picture of food insecurity. Food insecurity is not only to be able to produce food, you must be able to buy food, you must access food closer than where the food must be nutritioned and all those things. This is the challenge that is sitting with us. The graph here just demonstrates to us that those households, what are the main reasons of participating in agriculture by various households. People are participating for various reasons, either as a source of food, extra source of food, main income, extra source of income, or leisure. I know people in fisheries who are doing fisheries for leisure. All ornamental people are for leisure. All, what is this sport of fishing, angling, is for leisure purposes. But we don't really, for us, there's not much of the focus, but we need people who participate in aquaculture and fisheries. It's either food security or for generating income for the country.
Good morning, colleagues. As the chairperson has already introduced me, I'm Matabo Morandi from the Department of Rural Development and Agrarian Reform in the Aquaculture and Fisheries Unit. I just want to warn you before I start my talk. I cough a lot, so don't be scared. I have flu, so I'm gonna cough a lot. Don't be scared, I won't faint. No, you don't have to be scared. So my talk will be on the integrated aquaculture and fisheries strategy for the Eastern Cape province. So we've developed a plan in terms of how are we anticipating to roll it out. So my presentation will have the background, and then from there I'll talk about the existing aquaculture and fisheries development plans that we have in South Africa and also zoom to the Eastern Cape. Then I'll talk about the aim and objectives of the strategy and how do we plan to implement it, which is the methodology, and the actual proposed implementation plan from now on. What is it that we need to do up until we actually say we have our strategy and we're done with it, it's approved. So just to give you some sense of our province, the province has a coastline of about 800 kilometers, which includes about 250 permanent and temporary estuaries. And coastal communities along the shoreline have the potential to participate in marine aquaculture and fisheries. And this coastline is characterized by a diversity of fish species. And then apart from the coast or the marine, we also have numerous freshwater water bodies, which provide good opportunities for freshwater aquaculture and inland fisheries. And then from these inland water bodies, we have about 864 dams, which are registered with the Department of Water and Sanitation. And these dams are were specifically built for human needs, such as agriculture and industrial use. And out of this 864 dams available in the province, 45 of them are regarded as major dams, whereby they are actually monitored on a weekly basis by the Department of Water and Sanitation. And then with that being said, at the moment, the province has about 6 freshwater aquaculture farms, and we also have 4 marine aquaculture farms. And apart from these farms, we also have 4 aquaculture development zones. However, these development zones are not optimally utilized. Some of them are still underdeveloped, and then some of them, they are just underutilized. And then with regards to fisheries, in 2020, the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment has allocated fishing rights for about 72 cooperatives in the coastal communities. However, despite the fact that communities have been awarded with those fishing rights, which is the small-scale fisheries, they are not really able to use their fishing rights optimally because of lack of the relevant gear and equipment to actually partake in the activities that they would like to partake in based on what they've been authorized to actually fish or harvest. And when we noted that as the province, we realized that our plans to actually develop aquaculture and fisheries in the province, it would be good that the province should have a strategy. And this really prompted the need to have an integrated and an integrated aquaculture and fisheries strategy, which should be inclusive in addressing the challenges of the sectors, both aquaculture and fisheries, and identifying support initiatives required for sustainable development and management. And I just want to say that because somebody might ask, why are we having an integrated aquaculture and fisheries program? So for us as the province, the unit at DRDAR, it's us who have to develop this aquaculture and fisheries. And it's not like a situation where maybe the national department, they actually have a whole chief directorate that focuses on aquaculture, and then a whole other fish directorate, that focuses on fisheries. With us, our unit has to focus on both. So we might as well bring everybody into the room, because again, with us, our mandate is about food security, and both of them, both sectors, aquaculture and fisheries, at the end of the day, we want fish. And then when it comes to the existing aquaculture and fisheries plans that we have in the country and also in the Eastern Cape, the DFFE has developed the Socio-Economic Master Plan and Implementation Plan for aquaculture. We are aware of that. And then the DFFE has also developed the Socio-Economic Master Plan for fisheries. And both the master plans have priority areas that were identified, which actually contribute towards the development of a sustainable aquaculture and fisheries sector. And again, in addition to that, since the DFFE is the custodian of fisheries resources in the country, they have also developed a policy to ensure the sustainable utilization of inland fisheries for optimal social and economic benefit. So we acknowledge the work that has already been done. And also in the province, in 2010, the Eastern Cape Development Corporation has developed an Eastern Cape Province Aquaculture Plan. So as we may do our deliberations towards the development of an integrated aquaculture and fisheries plan, we'll also make use of the plan that was developed by the ECDC. And also our department has drafted actually a 5-year provincial aquaculture and fisheries strategy. And it was from 2018 to 2023. However, the strategy was never really concluded. It was never concluded. So we will also use we will review with and use some notes from there as we make our discussions. So now coming to the objectives, why are we here? I know the aim, why are we here? What is it that we actually want to do? The purpose is to develop an integrated aquaculture and fisheries strategy of the Eastern Cape, which will support the growth of a competitive, resilient, profitable, and ecological sustainable aquaculture and fisheries sector. And then the strategy will promote an accelerated economic development in the province by increasing production through aquaculture and fisheries sector. Now, how do we plan to embark on this? The first step is that we have to engage stakeholders in aquaculture and fisheries, from government institutions, private sector, our entities, and the industry itself, which is what we've done. That's why I've highlighted it in red. You will see as I go on in the presentation, the tasks that we've already done, I've highlighted them in red. And then what we are busy with, it's in green. And then the second part would be to facilitate the workshop with aquaculture and fisheries stakeholders. This is where we are. We are here now. And then from there, we will establish focus groups that will focus on research, policy, development. Yeah, as I go on, I will actually outline the topics that the focus groups will focus on. And then we'll also review the existing aquaculture and fisheries institutional arrangements, situation analysis, and also look at the development plans in South Africa and in the Eastern Cape. And after that, we'll definitely have to consolidate inputs that were gathered from the workshop that will actually help us when we're developing the strategy of the province. And then this is the method that we are adopting to. So the strategy will be informed by the Eastern Cape Department of Rural Development and Agrarian Reform 2020 to 2025 strategic plan. There is something that Mr. Makanda has already touched on. And this strategy of the department is actually in line with the provincial development plan, which seeks to prioritize the development of high agriculture to improve livelihoods. And these plans are premised on government priorities, which are informed by the National Development Plan 2030. So the department, in collaboration with ECSECC, you'd see the banners. We have banners of ECSECC. We are working very close. We've been working closely with them to facilitate this workshop. And then now it's you, the stakeholders. So the stakeholders that we have, or the stakeholders that we've engaged, we've looked at, these are the categories. We've engaged stakeholders from government institutions, which is DFFE, DRDAR within the province. They are more on the legislation part, the DWS, water. We need them to come on board with water. And then we also engaged district municipalities. And we also looked at the state agencies that we have in the province, which is the Eastern Cape Rural Development Agency, the Eastern Cape Development Corporation, Transnet. We also checked with invited Kuha Development Corporation and the East London Industrial Development Zone. And then we also identified higher learning institutions such as your Rhodes University, Nelson Mandela University, and University of Port Have. They've done some research in the space of aquaculture and fisheries. And we've also actually invited the farmers themselves, like your Kingfish Enterprise. I'm aware that Mr. Bok will join us later this afternoon. We've also invited Rivendell Hatchery. I see Michael is here. And while who's up alone, I see as well that Mr. Clark is here. Thank you. And then we also invited the private sector, like the Maritime Chamber, the South African Institute for Maritime. And yeah, these are the stakeholders that we've identified. So with the method or the approach that we're going to take during this 2 days of our workshop, as the Eastern Cape, we've identified the priority areas that we need to focus on for both aquaculture and fisheries. And when I talk about fisheries, we must also bear in mind that we are also looking at the inland fisheries, not the fisheries that takes place in the marine space, even the inland fisheries. So these are the priority areas that we've identified as the areas that we need to deliberate more on as we split into our focus groups. However, if maybe from this panel, there might be other areas that you feel we omitted, you are more than welcome to give us your input. So we'll look at the regulatory framework, access to science and water, diversification of research and development, sustainable aquaculture and fisheries, value chain and market development, finance, skills development and capacity building, coordination on technical advice and support, and then establishment of a provincial aquaculture and fisheries directorate, and then monitoring and evaluation. So now our proposed plan. As I've mentioned, that the areas that I've highlighted in red, we've already done the tasks. The ones in green, they are ongoing. So we've already developed the concept. And then, yes, the concept was approved. Hence, we're able to actually seek approval from the HOD to host this workshop. And then ECSECC has actually done some work on reviewing the sector economic contribution areas, mostly on the small scale fisheries. And then there has also been some review on the applicable regulatory framework for both aquaculture and fisheries, but we are still busy with that one. It will be Dr. DRDAR and DDET. And then from there, we are now here. Today is the 29th. We are having the workshop, and tomorrow will be our day 2 of the workshop. And then after that, after the workshop, we will consolidate inputs gathered from this gathering. And then we are hoping to do that task from the 1st of July up until the 15th of July. We will work hand in hand with ECSECC. And then once we're done with that, the strategy will be reviewed. We'll arrange a workshop again where all stakeholders come. And then just to check that the inputs that you provided to us, were they captured properly? Are you satisfied? Are we all agreeing that this is exactly what we want to move forward with? And then after that, after the strategy review, we will go back, Dr. Da and ECSECC, to amend the document based on the inputs that we might have gathered as well from there. And then we are hoping that in August, from the 5th to the 10th of August, we should have completed the strategy and actually obtained approval from our HOD. There is it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matabo. Hopefully you have a clear sense of the roadmap we are going to take to ultimately having the strategy. And also just check if there are any major players in the space that we are missing, because we would like for this process to be as inclusive as possible, especially from the private sector side, as well as the cooperatives. I think that's mainly our interest, because this is going to be the strategy that's going to inform allocation of resources and other things. So we'd like to include as many people as possible. Thank you very much, Matabo, for painting that context. Okay, so we now get to the core content of the workshop today. I'm going to give us from the EFFP side how the strategy looks like, what the EFFP does to support small scale fisheries, and then it's going to speak more on the aquaculture side. We will see when to break for tea, yeah? As we proceed, so that we freshen up, because we'd like you to be very much engaged throughout the session. Can we sing a song so long?
All right, thank you very much, everyone. Let me introduce myself again. My name is Agrarian from the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment. So the presentation that we're going to give you today is in two parts. The first one, we just want to give a snapshot of who these small-scale fishers are and what are their socio-economic standing in the meantime. And then the next presentation will look at some of the priorities that we have identified as interventions that are needed as yesterday. And also we are going to outline some of the interventions that we have facilitated as the department, and also propose some of the interventions moving forward. The first thing that I'd like to indicate is that throughout the coastline of South Africa, many people have been depending on marine resources for their livelihood. However, as we know, there's been marginalization throughout for various reasons. Historically, I think everyone knows the issues of the Land Act. People were dispossessed, some they were moved away from the coastal areas, and they were forced to find other alternatives, even though they depended on marine resources for their livelihood. Issues of the apartheid laws continued with that. We had Fisheries Act in 1988, which was exclusively for very few white males who were able to advance themselves. And most of those companies, they are still existing today and dominating the business sector. Obviously, in 1994, we were ushered in a new democratic dispensation, and there was a new constitution in 1996. Then after that, we had the Marine Living Resources Act. Out of that Marine Living Resources Act, small-scale fishers were nowhere to be found because we only had subsistence fishers. People were only allowed to go to fish in order to eat, referring to fishers in communities. Then after that, there was a subsistence fisheries task group that was tasked to look at how can we best manage the subsistence fishers in South Africa. Out of that, it became clear that you had a group of people who were not necessarily subsistence fishers, but they were also commercial fishers in their own right. And that's when it was indicated that we had small-scale fishers in South Africa, people who can fish for food security, but also for commercial purpose. Then the department allocated fishing rights in 2005, and a number of these small-scale fishers were now left out of the process because of how that system was rolled out, and hence government was taken to court, and then there was a court judgment from the Equality Court that indicated that there should be a policy or a dispensation specifically for small-scale fishers in South Africa. And that's when the small-scale fisheries policy was drafted, and it was finalized and approved. In 2012, the policy took a very long time. It went through net processes, it went through Parliament, and it was approved. So in 2013, we developed an implementation plan, which was a 5-year plan, which indicated that we need about 424 million to fully implement the small-scale fisheries sector in South Africa. We know that government does not have that much money, and hence we have to be innovative in how we do things, which included having partners within government and also in the private sector as well. Then we had to amend the Act to recognize the small-scale fishers for the first time in South Africa. That process unfolded. We had a bill in 2014, which included the small-scale fisheries as a new sector replacing subsistence, which was very limiting. And then we had the amended Marine Living Resources Act promulgated in 2016, and we had new regulations in place for the small-scale fisheries sector, which outlined how we should be rolling out the small-scale fisheries sector. Then the objectives of the sector is to promote equitable access and involvement in all aspects of fishing for small-scale fishers, to provide economic access through fishing and its value chain. And this is in line, I think, with the objectives that Mr. Magranda was talking about in his presentation as well. And also importantly, to rectify the past injustices against women, youth, and people with disabilities, and also to recognize approaches to fisheries management, which contributes to food security, socio-economic development, and the alleviation of poverty. Those approaches would include multi-species approach to rights allocation, the co-management approach to fisheries management as well, and ecosystems approach to fisheries management as well. Then maybe some of us might not really understand who these small-scale fishers are, because not everyone who resides along the coastline is a small-scale fisher. So the definition of a small-scale fisher is a person that wishes to meet the food and basic livelihood needs, or are directly involved in harvesting, processing, or marketing of fish, who are traditionally operating on nearshore fishing grounds, and predominantly employed traditional low technology gear or passive fishing gear, and usually undertake single-day fishing trips and engage in the sale or barter, or otherwise involved in the full commercial activity. So there is this misunderstanding that small-scale fishers are not commercial fishers. Small-scale fishers are full-blown commercial fishers that operate in a particular manner. This is just a map. I'm sure some of you might know that map that looks at all the small-scale fishing communities along the coastline of South Africa. As I indicated, we have around about 200 small-scale fishers. Eastern Cape has the highest number of small-scale fishers as we speak, with the highest number of communities. We have 5,335 declared small-scale fishers in the Eastern Cape. Then one other thing that would be interesting is to just understand the socio-economic profile of these communities. So we ran a survey in all the communities that we work in. And we did a survey with the declared small-scale fishers. And the information that we're able to share now is specifically for Eastern Cape. We have information for each and every province based on their dynamics. The first thing that we need to look at is the age distribution in these communities. One, you'll see that 43% of declared small-scale fishers are between the age of 18 and 35. That drops to age. We are fortunate in the Eastern Cape that there are a lot of young people who are active in fishing. In other countries, more especially in Asian countries, one of the challenges that they are facing is the aging of fishers. In Japan, the average fisher is 74. Their biggest problem is that in 10, 15 years' time, there will be very few fishers who will be able to be a workforce in the fishing sector because of the aging industry. And then about 45% of them are between 35 and 60, and only 11% are 60 years and above. Then in terms of gender, we have 53% who are males and 47% who are females. And these two genders, they do different things. Mainly females, they collect shellfish on the rocks, and then males, most of the times, they fish for lionfish or maybe dive for lobster and other species, but it doesn't mean that there are no females who are also doing the same thing as well. Then what's also important is the issue of literacy levels, because this will also talk to the type of interventions that we need to start thinking about moving forward. And as you can see, there is that 35.6% has incompleted secondary schooling. And if you look at incompleted primary schooling, it's 25%, followed by no formal schooling at all, which constitutes 21%, and 4% which constitute completed secondary schooling. And there's only 1.5% of declared small-scale fishers who have some form of tertiary education. This points to a very big challenge. Whatever intervention that we need to look at, we need to understand the education level and where and how we pitch that intervention. We can't go to communities and say we are going to, train you on auditing processes. We need to start from some and pitch it in a way that they will be able to understand and be able to drive their businesses, which are cooperatives. Then also at the same time, issues of access to funding or access to household income. Over 40% have no government grants that they access. And interestingly enough, about 30% have child support grants. Obviously, in order for you to be a fisher, you must be 18 years and above of age. That means that child support grant is most probably supporting the entire family. It's not doing what it was meant to do. That means somehow there's something that is not balancing there. And then that 11%, 21% of them, they have the old age grant. What's also interesting as well is the household monthly income. you'll find out that over 61% they have less than 1,000 rands as a household income, not an individual's income, the entire household. And chances are that 1,000 bulk of it comes from the child support grant that we spoke about, you know, and then followed by 28% whereby the household income is between 1,000 and 1,700 rands. Then there are people who are also forced to fish due to lack of food. Majority of them, they are forced to fish because there's no food at home. About 62% of them, they are forced to fish, and then 8% they're not forced to fish because there's no food. Maybe they have other ambitions. They want to supplement whatever source of food they get with fishing. But 62% is a lot. Then from those who fish, do they sell their fish? 73% of them, they do sell their fish. But still, these communities are in still dire need. The question is, where do they sell this fish? And what impact do they have in selling their fish in the process? This might talk to the value chain and also access to markets, and whether are they in control of the price of their fish. Then 36% of those who sell their fish, they sell to their neighbors, so it's more like bartering. And also 35% they sell to tourists. Fortunately, Eastern Cape is endowed with the beauty of the nature, and there are many tourists that come to this province. And most people, they sell, 35% sell to the tourists. Again, the question is, what is the process of them selling to the tourists? Do they determine the price, and are they able, and what is the basis for them to determine the price? Do they consider the amount of time they spend in fishing and also the costs that are related to fishing in order to determine the price? Or are they price takers because they're desperate, they need to eat today? And then there are some who are selling from outside buyers. Then also percentage of income that comes from fishing, I think this is very important. 58% of all of the income from the household comes from fishing. And then followed by 18% who are saying most of its income comes from fishing, which makes up 75%, and then 12% makes up 50%. So there's a lot of income whereby from the household, all of it comes from fishing. But at the same time, if you look at the household income, majority of it is 1,000 rands or less. That means the majority of that 100% that comes from fishing, it's less than 1,000 rands per month. That talks to the issue of the value that they get from what they are doing. So in our interventions as well, I want to emphasize this fact that we need to ensure that we provide or we put a structure of markets so that they can have proper access to markets and they can increase the value of the fish that they fish. Then also my last slide on the data that we collected from the Eastern Cape, people who skip meals at least in a month, 34% of them, they do skip a meal in a month. That 34% is a lot. And from that 34%, 46% of it, at least they skip a meal once a week. And then 54% of them, they skip 2 meals in 1 week. This talks about food security. So what do we need to do? I think the small-scale fisheries policy does recognize this. It recognizes these challenges that I'm talking about. And due to its Eastern Cape's historic and current economic challenges, small-scale fisheries have some of these challenges. Eastern Cape has a lot of rural communities, and which bulk of small-scale fisheries are in rural areas. There's a need for a strategy that was identified, and it was developed to identify and understand some of these challenges and look at the possible ways of how we can mitigate these measures. what is emphasized in our strategy is the fact that we need a well-coordinated approach, and the next part of the presentation will emphasize that. And also noting all those challenges, Eastern Cape has the most potential. We work in the four coastal provinces, but I can dare and say that Eastern Cape has the most potential in this regard. Then following this presentation outline, we will outline the strategic analysis and priorities and interventions moving forward. So I will just request my colleague Cindy to just quickly take us through some of the challenges, the interventions that have been identified, and some of the projects, and then the recommendations moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. So, as I said, my name is okay, so we are going to be looking at support program interventions. So before we even think about interventions, the one thing we'd like to look at, it's blurry because there's a lot of information that is here. But what we needed to do firstly, we'll try and share this presentation also. What we needed to look at as part of the strategy was the overall problem 3. Now, what we realized as part of the main problem was that these cooperatives, based on what Wabungile has mentioned, the issue of education levels, there's an issue where the cooperatives are unable to run their cooperatives as businesses. So it's an issue of capacity, which is the main thing that is there. And then based on that, what we then also noticed was that, sorry, I'm just trying to, maybe it's going to help if it is on it. It's much better. Yeah, okay, much better. I will try to navigate. So as I said, undercapacitated to run the sustainable businesses as entities, right? And then from there, we have 3 problems or 3 issues that we had identified, which was that small-scale fishers have no skills to run their businesses, as I said, as entities. We have an issue whereby, again, what Robert had mentioned, the issue whereby small-scale fishers do not participate in the value chain of fishing. And then the last major one is an issue of limited infrastructure. We had mentioned that majority of the cooperatives and communities are in rural areas. It is very difficult to get to those communities, and some places you find that there's no slipways. So there's issues of infrastructure also. And then looking at all of those, each one of these goes down to have issues. We see that there's generally small fishers have literacy levels, that's what we mentioned. Small-scale fishery communities have limited experience in operating commercial entities. As well as Chigo had said, looking at the literacy levels and the background, most of the people that have these rights do not have experience of any business in the first place. Because as we had said, these are commercial entities, the businesses that we had basically created. And then going down to that is that many small-scale fishers dropped out of school. So this all talks to the information that Kwabonge had mentioned above. But now, looking at all of these main 3 problems, right? There is the issue of the value chain, where, again, in the previous presentation, fishers are unable to negotiate for their product. They catch fish, then because they do not have infrastructure and all of those things, it is easier for whoever is buying to just buy, giving them the least amount of price. So the main issue is for them to catch and quickly release the product without adding any value. So fishers are not participating in that aspect. As we said, there's issues of markets. As much as there are markets, and the previous presentation says that fishers are selling to neighbors, the market, the main market that we were wanting in terms of when people are able to sell and get more money, there's issues there. Sometimes we've also heard whereby some fishers want to sell to tourists, and they have to sell to tourists. There's issues of regulations here and there. They'll sell to restaurants. Then there's also sometimes issues of regulations and people not trusting whether is this legal or is it not. So there are those issues that are there. And do not add value at all, because as I said, they do not have storage. So as soon as fishers catch their fish or they have their fish, they sell it as is. And then the last one, as I mentioned, issues of infrastructure. Sorry. Yeah. So there's issues of infrastructure that I mentioned, where there's issues of landing sites. The DJT there, I mentioned that. Poor road conditions, access to processing and packaging facilities. So those are the main major issues that trickle down. But what we then do as a department, looking at the main problems, we then looked at the objectives in terms of what needs to be done to counter this issue. So looking at the main overall goal, basically is to capacity fishers to be able to run sustainable cooperatives. Because remember, we said the main issue is that they're not compensated enough to run this cooperative. So the main goal of the department of the strategy is to capacitate fishers to run these cooperatives. And then the three objectives, obviously, we've turned them around to say that we want fishers to be to have acquired skills to run their businesses. And then the other one is we want fishers to be able to participate meaningfully in the value chain. There's a difference between participating in the value chain and participating meaningfully. We'll take the concession outside part, because the main thing we want is that as much as the department has given rights to small-scale fishers, the idea is to make sure that we end poverty or eliminate poverty. Now, if we are saying fishers are participating and selling a fish for 1 rand instead of selling it for 500 rands or 300 rands, we want fishers to be able to participate throughout the entire value chain and meaningfully in that, so that they can get the proceeds that are required that anyone else will be able to get from that product. So that is why we're talking about meaningful participation in the value chain. And then obviously the other one is then the issue of insufficient infrastructure. The objective is that ideally there would be sufficient infrastructure, because this is an objective that you want. But looking at these three objectives, as a department, there are some of these that the department has very little in terms of being able to participate in. Hence, we stress the issues of partnerships. Now, based on one of the strategic objectives of the department mentioned by Agrarian in the first presentation is that we need fishers, or we want fishers to participate in the value chain. Now, the department then had a strategic decision to say that out of all of these issues, there's quite a lot of them, but we will want to focus on one, to say that from all of these three that are very big, we're going to focus on the issue of getting fishers to participate meaningfully in the value chain. So there's all of these issues, but now we want to bring it down to one. Now, with the idea that if fishers are able to participate meaningfully in the value chain, it will obviously have knock-on effects, and to try and solve the other issues that are there. So the idea here, as I said, this was a problem statement with this particular problem analysis. And then obviously moving forward is that the objective of this one, as we said, we want fishers to be able to have increased access to markets. They already have, they're selling to neighbors and so forth, but we want to increase the access to markets. And then we want fishers to be able to make their own, market their own fish. Currently we know, and in the fishing space, if you're familiar with the fishing space, people and big companies always say, there is no value in catching the fish. but there's value in selling and marketing the fish, because from you getting the fish, you get the fish, it's 10 rand as a single. But from that one fish, you are able to clean it up, cut the one fish into different pieces and make different products from that one fish. So the main money or the main thing that is there is in processing the fish and making sure that the fish is value adding. So we talk about value adding. So the main money is in the value adding, and we want fishers and our cooperatives to be fully participating in that part of the sector. And then easy communication with markets. And then obviously there's an issue of infrastructure. As a Department of Fisheries, we have very little to do with infrastructure. Hence, we would like to, whoever is able to assist in these, because we've been obviously communicating with municipalities, with different departments that have specific mandates to ensuring that there's infrastructure. But apart from that, we're also saying that the idea is to have access to fish marketing processes. There's a few, you'll see with the intervention that are going to follow. There's a few municipalities that have assisted, particularly with this one, because for you to have a fish establishment or an FPE, what as we call it, you don't necessarily have to have a big building. You start small. So you'll see as we go through with the different interventions that we've had. So the idea also to also have sufficient landing sites. One of the issues that we've also realized, particularly in the Eastern Cape, is that a cooperative will be based in this area, but for them to have a landing site, they have to go to a different town and access to those landing sites. So those are things that we need to deal with to ensure that these cooperatives have access to those landing sites. And then the third one there is that co-ops are able to control the price of their fish. That is the most important one, because if they're able to catch their fish and retain it and store it wherever they're able to store it, and then be able to add value to it, that is also a very important one, because if they are not able to keep it, because some of the people in fisheries will also tell you, depending on the species that you're catching, it's very good to sell different species at different times of the year. Because if everyone is catching snook right now, snook you might be selling it for 5 rand. But if you wait a little bit longer, when it's not in the market, you'll be able to sell it with a much higher price, because it's scarce. It's almost, people with economics might know this better. So going into interventions, looking at all of these things. So our interventions are mainly the department facilitating these interventions through service providers, through different government departments, some of you guys are sitting here, and through the private sector. So some of these interventions, for example, one of the very first things that the department did was that when the cooperatives were formed, we had what some people call it a crash course, whereby we had a 2-day training for all the cooperatives to just take them through what is a cooperative. Obviously, a 2-day training is never enough, because it needs to be a consistent thing. You need mentoring and so forth. But what the department tried to do was, at least as a start, to have that either the training of what is a cooperative. And then obviously what we then did within the region, we assisted with the registration of a secondary cooperative, whereby there is in the development of a business plan in the Tsani Mankosi area, whereby there is a cooperative with a fishing right, and then there's one without a fishing right. The idea there was to assist that cooperative to be able to sell the fish, and to also have a fish establishment, an FPE, fish processing factory. So we've also partnered with the Oceana Group, who have been doing training for the past 2020, 2021, and last year. They've had different additional training to what we've had, going into more detail in terms of what is a cooperative and how to run a cooperative and so forth. We've also had a lot of support from OR Tambo. My colleagues within the province have a good relationship with OR Tambo, where OR Tambo has provided business entrepreneurship training that was provided in Ingruza Hill local municipality, And ORTAM is also supported with fishing equipment, and also they've provided 4 containers to cooperatives. This is what we're talking about in terms of that storage facilities and department engaging with municipalities to see how municipalities can help, but also trying to coordinate the support that is going to communities so that the right support is given to cooperatives. The National Skills Fund have also provided 19 containers. So this is also part of the coordination of support that we are saying as a department, that we're dealing with different stakeholders to coordinate the support that is going to cooperatives. So 19 containers have been provided to cooperatives in the Coast Bay area. And then obviously those are some of the cooperatives that have benefited from that. And then also part of this, there's also been business acumen training, safety at sea, and then the value, also value chain training and so forth in the OR Tambo district, in the Alfred Nzo district municipality, and in Amatola district. And then the First National Bank, they've assisted with opening banks for some of the cooperatives that we're working with. We're also in partnership with WWF, where they're currently implementing the East Coast Rock Lobster fishing FIP, Fish Improvement Project in the Port St. John's area. Then we're also working a lot with Dr. Da, who's also provided fish equipment for small-scale fish for the cooperatives, and then DID also providing support and providing training. So these are what we're talking about in terms of what we've been trying to facilitate as a department, understanding that as much as we are a department, some of these things need to be coordinated. So the things that we're stressing for is a much more coordinated approach to supporting cooperatives, so that as a Department of Fisheries, we understand which cooperatives have which rights, and we understand what is it that they require. So it is more important that we work together in terms of providing this support. We do know also that there's way more support that has been provided in the province that we have not captured, because some of that information we do not know. We heard today or yesterday that there is also some more training that has been given, or support that has been given to other cooperatives. But the issue of them not being coordinated, or the department not knowing about that. But although that there's been these interventions, it's not been all easy. There's been challenges and shortfalls from the department side and with our stakeholders. The first one is that lack of internal capacity or staff within the department. So the one thing, I'm not sure if you will know, because some of you will understand that in East London, we've got an office in East London, we've got an office in Port St. John's. There's one official in Port St. John's responsible for all of those cooperatives in that area. There is two officials in East London responsible for all of the cooperatives in this area. We've got an office in PE, but we do not have a designated official that is dealing with small scale there. So as much as we are coordinating all of these trainings, Cindy and myself and Abangela are based in Cape Town. Now, there has been an issue of lack of capacity, and that lack of capacity then has led to lack of consistent communication with cooperatives, because as much as, for example, Mr. Tozana will do his best to communicate with some of the cooperatives and go visit some of the cooperatives, other cooperatives in PE will also want assistance. So it's an issue of where do we go, and that's something that the department has been trying to resolve, and hence we've been looking at issues of partnerships and ensuring that wherever other departments are able to assist, for example, we work as much as possible with some of the departments, but internally as a department also, we have been looking into that, because we have been getting additional colleagues from within the department to be part of small scale. Then there's also a lack of funding from the department to directly implement these support programs. As we said, Babongile mentioned that from the study, the estimated budget was 424 million. Now, lack of budget to do all of the good work that we want to do, because the policy clearly outlines most of the things that we need to do and how they need to be done. But the lack of funding is an issue. And then lack of coordinated approach to implement the support programs in communities. As I said, I've been mentioning this one throughout, that we will hear, for example, that a cooperative in Quebec has been supported by a boat. And for example, the boat would be a 14-meter boat, and it's intended for example, to be in the line fish sector. And then we find out that, yes, you bought in this boat, but it's in contrast with the regulations. It's not within the regulations of what it's intended to do. Then that boat then ends up being useless, and then the department needs to do exemptions and so forth. And then you get the commercial sector complaining that why are you treating small scale differently? So only if we have those support programs and support being coordinated, we are able then to advise to say that, yes, still do provide the service, but let's look at this like this, so that whatever you're giving to cooperatives, it is something that they'll be able to utilize optimally. And then the need to develop a climate change adaptation strategy. Issues of climate is a very important, and there's been a lack of that, and we have not been able to do that, and we've been in the process of doing that as a department as a whole. Then looking at all of these challenges, and we've got priorities going forward, because as much as we've mentioned what we tried to do and all the bad things or all the things that have the shortfalls, we've got specific priorities going forward. So what the department has committed to do and looking to do is to provide more capacity and support to the Eastern Cape officers. So as you see, myself, we are here. We are going to be providing more support to the Eastern Cape officers, improve our communication with cooperatives and other stakeholders. This is something that we want to do. Ideally, we need to be communicating with our cooperatives at least monthly, with all cooperatives. That is something that we need to do. But for us to do that, we need to ensure that as a department, we have more staff to ensure that we are able to do that, and we have regular contact with the cooperatives. Assist all cooperatives with updating the CPIC documents. So you understand that in the Eastern Cape, most of the cooperatives were formed in 2019. Now, with CPIC documentation, you need to maintain, and you need to have annual things and so forth. So one of the things we've realized is that some of the cooperatives, if not most, have not been following those processes whereby they have HMs and so forth, and the documentation might not be in line with CPIC, or they might not have updated all of their documents. So that is something that we are planning to do as early as July, end of July, where we're going to be wanting to start to engage with some of the cooperatives and look at which cooperatives are CPIC, which ones are compliant and which ones are not, and then we will start to engage with them. And hopefully, if we do have any stakeholder that has this thing as one of their mandate, let us talk. Then the other one is to appoint a service provider to assist cooperatives with abalone ranching. So you all know that we've got cooperatives, there's certain cooperatives that have abalone ranching rights. Now, the issue of giving rights to cooperatives, and the idea that as much as we do want support and we want private sector to lay their hand, but the department, which is crucial, is that when the department gave the fishing rights to cooperatives, the intention is to benefit the cooperatives mostly, to ensure that the cooperatives is the one that benefit from the resource. So it is important then for us to provide whatever support we are able to. For the longest of time, the issue of the abalone ranching, we wanted to get support from stakeholders, and we've been communication with the BCC and so forth, with the idea that they would be able to do this. But then we'd seen that the process took longer, and then the department decided that we will take this upon ourselves, because there's specific requirements that are required according to the guidelines for ranching that are required from the right holder, which is the cooperative. And then we understand that as much as these are guidelines, the cooperatives are unable to provide that to us as a department. So the department then is saying that we will get a service provider to do those things that we know that the cooperative will not be able to do, so that they are in line with the regulations. Because as much as we wanting cooperatives to fully participate in all of those things, but we cannot, there's regulations that we cannot run away from. So that's where the department then is trying to say that we will try to step in this one and appoint a service provider to do that. And then work with relevant stakeholders to create market access in the East Coast Rock Lobster, process, because we know, as we're saying, the East Coast Rock Lobster, the cooperatives that have rights for East Coast Rock Lobster, they saw East Coast Rock Lobster by the street and so forth. But what we're wanting is to have access to markets and look at even overseas markets and so forth. So we're wanting to focus on that. We also looking to finalize or to move forward with the co-management project in Port St. John's. We wanted to hide it in the Port St. John's area, and then we will have it in different regions also. And then continue to provide support to cooperatives in the squid sector. One of the things that Alvin was also mentioning, that Eastern Cape has potential. There is a squid sector, there's cooperatives that have squid in this region or in the Eastern Cape. There are cooperatives that are doing very well in relation to squid, how they've been participating in the sector. One of the things that we've been providing as a department is that understanding that the cooperatives do not have squid vessels, but what they've been doing, they've been communicating with the previous right holders and people that have these big vessels. But we've realized that the contracts that are being signed are not beneficial for the cooperatives. So what the department has been providing, we've been asking cooperatives to send us their contracts so that we advise and we see to say that this is something that might not work on your favor, and this is something that will work in your favor. Some of the cooperatives were taken to court by one of the big companies because of those whereby the cooperatives decided to say that we do not want this percentage share, we want this percentage share because we deserve it, it is our right. That cooperative was taken to court. The department decided that we will also assist the cooperative, and we went to court, we won the case. That was last year. So that is some of the support that the department is providing to say that if we are able to, we will definitely even go to court to support our cooperatives. And then lastly, continue to strengthen partnerships with other government departments, because we are working with other government departments, but we need a much more coordinated approach. Moving forward, just before I close off, as I was saying, this is something that I've been saying throughout, that we have acknowledged that there's a lot that we need to do. We have done a lot already, but we do need a more coordinated approach to providing support programs in the sector. And then one of the things going forward is commitment on the strategic partnerships for a coordinated approach. So the things that are listed here, these are some of the priority support programs that were identified by the cooperatives when we had met with them. They had looked at some of the things that they wanted and some of the support programs they wanted. So moving forward is that ideally the stakeholders that are here, government departments, is that let us look at these priority programs that we've put, and partly we've mainly focused on to see where do I fit in, or where do we fit in, where can we provide further support and collaboration on looking at these. You'll see that there's short term, medium term, and then also going to medium to long term. So you'll see that there are things here that we've mentioned in terms of these project programs, and we'd like that the stakeholders look at these and see where you fit in. And then in conclusion, it's basic that, again, for the successful implementation of this strategy, it all relies heavily on strategic partnerships, and we need to ensure that it's strategic partnerships between government departments and the private sector. One other thing that we all need to understand is that these small scale cooperatives are businesses, and we all need to work together to ensure that the businesses work together, because they are businesses at the end of the day, and we're wanting them to make money out of this process, but at the same time grow from it. And then we all need a coordinated approach to implementing these. And thank you.
Thank you very much. That was very clear. I think the department has given us different response. The thing that we really need to focus on. Can I suggest we break for tea? After tea, Keegan is going to come in. His focus is going to be on more on aquaculture specifically. I think I'm starting to get excited because I can see where we are going. The things that need to be done are starting to come out very clearly. And I want really to hear from you, stakeholders yourselves. What do you think? What are your experiences about this? And we'll have that immediately after Ukigan, and then so that thinking we will say, this is what needs to be done. Can we break for tea? Can you take 15 minutes? Tea is over here. Stretch your legs.
Because I think the recommendation that we got from DRDAR, colleagues from Fisheries, was so granular that it's either it excites you or it deflects you. Because you're not going to say it's always going to excite you. You don't know what you think about them. Because some of the views tend to be informed by what you think about government. But I think it was granular to the point that at least we know what is the plan of government about the small scale fisheries. Now it's upon us as the stakeholders involved here, how do we change, how to make use of that information that is just given to us. Colleagues, I will start the session by allowing you, the panel, to introduce yourself as part of the introduction. Please telling us, well, I know we advise that you are being taken from various districts. You are representing your district here. You will need to give us a brief background about your district and the cooperative state that are in your district and what activities basically are doing in your district. And if you can reflect on basically these inputs, initiatives that has been presented here, I think the microphone is short. We have to discuss, we'll have that in introductions, and we'll also allow some reflections from the floor. After we've taken some few questions with them, 3 or 4 questions, then we get from the program. We start to discuss about the role of even the small scale fisheries within the development of our community, especially about development. Let's take over to you,
I think it's afternoon now. Good morning, Richard. Good morning, everybody. Like I've introduced myself previously, my name is Ronaldo Meyer, and I'm currently the chairperson of Zambia Small Scale Fishing Cooperative, which is based at the Wild Coast Pizana area under the Prenzo district. I'm not sure when you say, Chairperson, that we must reflect, do we go into detail on what was presented, or is that opportunity still going to come, or must we just introduce ourselves?
That opportunity will come later. For now, is to introduce yourself and your area about what's happening in your space in Alfred zone. For now, then we'll get a chance to reflect on the presentation.
Okay. Okay, basically in our area at the moment, nothing's been done. We have received some support from our local municipality, but regards to the cooperatives working, nothing's happening. Everything's still dead still.
Someone must come and add reflect with interpretations.
can take one. I think you can. Thanks, Richard. No problem.
Mijn naam is Frans van Demmers, de vice-chairman van ECSECC Question. 2021, 2022, het was nog meer op de veld zijn, bij soort. De eerste seizoen was bij zwak. Die soort ging al bij 2022, 23 jaar, het was bij goed doen in een hotel.
Okay, so I'm going to just translate and apply. So the co-op
ECSECC
question has started 2021 and 22-23. Yeah, so the first year the squid was very bad. They did not have much catches. The second season, the last season, was much better.
We buy in the hotel, the fishing line fish. And the government has said that the state is wrong, that's a 4 meters scape of the government scape, 12 scape, etc. No someone's escape, so never in the water. Anyhow, the understanding what was there, the commercial loans of the scape income, and the other there comes last of like, so really all by a funny, but translate of it.
Okay, so some problems that they've experienced is that the vessel that they had is apparently not of the correct length, and then it was kept out of fishing for a while. And then another one is that the commercial fishermen are able to offload first, so they always have to offload half.
And later, van de Delta transport members, het was boven op en dat op zijn boot. En de 300 liters van so die soort dat zie je wat bij goed ons en dan waar die gaan in de department. We gaan allemaal die leren en dan die span met baie gehouden om ons soort goed te krijgen.
Okay, so they were able to, probably last season, be able to purchase laptops for each one of the members. And the general feeling is that the last good season was good, and they are very thankful for the opportunity that they had.
Already, igama ngumveliso kaShemesa ngirepresenta iWathana district okwamanje nje ukukhaya ngibulele department lena Department of Rural and Development and Agrarian Reform ukusupporta kakhulu la mandla waseWathana baya eWathana sinawo umasipalati wahlanu phakathi eWathana KSD beyinyandeni beyi-Port St Johns beyi-Buza Hills aba coastal ube ngumhlobo inland phaya i-department lena i-Department of Rural Development and Agrarian Reform isiqinise kakhulu kuyicela le-equipment izinto zokuloba eziquka ne-translative.
Oh, if I go the off guard. Okay, the gentleman is saying is coming from OR Tambo, from the local municipality of Nyambeni. They firstly would like to appreciate and be grateful that they were given the opportunity by DRDAR to be invited to be part of this session. They are from that district. They've had some support that they received.
All right, thank you. I think it's the cooperative coffee pay, yes, it was vendors of law, cooperative they want like public history, Umayandi. Papa's way and in Korea Presley Bay Fishing Co-op, I it as or a Kulu department. Phaya ePort St George kube cha bebe cha kuba nesikhabe khona ngasidibene nazo ziphumela baso phaya koza hipe bluff nje phaya kanye nase kwaThamba umasipala nokozamile ukuthathisa phaya kweza cooperatives phaya phansi kwakhe phaya phansi kwaThamba kwazile ukunikeza le-container ne-fishing equipment phansi kwe-KSD naphansi kweNyandeni naphansi kwe-Port St George naphansi kweNgquza Hill.
We received support from DRDAR. The cooperatives that benefited from that support from DRDAR is a cooperative from KSD in the area called Coffee Bay and also at the Presley Bay and the local municipality, as well as Port St. John's municipality, a cooperative called Gustavo, as well as Waterfall Bluff cooperative from Mimosa Hill. Also, over time, they supported us with a container. One container was placed at KSD, one at Nyandeni, and the other one at Port St. John's, as well as Mimosa Hill municipality.
Okunye ekubalulekile ukuhighlighta manje nge-challenge esijongene nayo kakhulu njengengabula nto i-submission. I-challenge esinayo kakhulu phaa kweza cooperatives phantse zonke ukungalingani ngoku esibonayo akulingani apha ngoku nana. Zikhona ii-cooperative ezingathi zibhetele kunezinye. Xa unokuya mhlawumbi okanye phaya eNyandeni uye kwi-cooperative ekuthiwa ngumngcibi family cooperative uphinde uye kulapho Bay Fishing Co-op ungathola ukuthi kukhona ungalingani othile. Mandithi ezinye ingathi ziyasabalala ii-co-ops. Into ebangela loo nto leyo ke ukuxabana kwabalungu i-community. Khona abalungu abangaphakathi aba-community kunantsika kwii-cooperatives, kukhona abalungu abangaphandle. So aba bangaphandle bagileka aba bangaphakathi kwama-cooperatives bangabo abangeba ungasetyenzwa because akusetyenzwa.
We have got challenges that we experienced within the district of Tambo as cooperatives. If I can cite one example, one cooperative at Presley Bay and the other one at Lebek within local municipality of Nyandeni. We've got conflicts, and when you look at these conflicts, you find out that the conflicts are as a result of there are cooperatives, there are fishers who belong to a cooperatives, and there are fishers who were not lucky enough to be part of the cooperatives, they were not registered. So there's a conflict then between these two cooperatives. Those who are inside and outside, they don't see eye to eye. Others, they criticize others that the reason why there are no activities or there are no progress is because of the others. So there's a lot of fingering or pinpointing each other within the cooperatives. It results with a big conflict which can destroy these cooperatives.
Let's take this on Kando. Go to Maton.
Manje polisi eminingi lonke noma wethu kathi diphansi kwalo masipala kwale-region yeMathole. Okokuqala ndingumlobi osakhasayo, ndimele abalobi abakhasayo. Uba ndizawuthetha ngomasipala womama noMbhashi, ndizawuthetha ngomasipala ngabalobi abalityalwayo. Akukho nento eyenzekayo. Uba abalobi ithi into yabalobi singabalobi bokulungiselela okokuba usuke ikati eziko. Okwesibini, sikwazi ukuba nengeniso. Akukho nto yenzeka.
Okay, thank you. I am Nomawet Katati, coming from the district of Amatole. Basically, I'm coming from the local municipality. I'm representing the small-scale fishers from the district and also from these local municipalities. But if I can say it clearly, there are no activities. We are these cooperatives that were forgotten. There is nothing that is currently happening within these cooperatives, especially the cooperatives from the two local municipalities, Bashe and Noma. There are no activities. We are forgotten.
Sikhona sibonke siyazama ukushuza kodwa kusihlile.
We are trying as cooperatives, but there is nothing coming up.
Okay, I think we're getting a picture. We're getting a picture that says you've got two districts, 4 districts on the plot, and 2 districts there is activity happening in terms of cooperatives moving. Then we've got 2 districts where there is very minimum, anything that is as general how we've given them licenses and all that. I think colleagues, let's allow them to. I want to give you sort of 2 minutes to just to reflect on the presentation that was given to us. And then after that, we'll go to the next one because I know we've listened to DFF presenting on the plans of what DFF was on the plans. What are they thinking about how they can grow cooperatives? We will just have a reflection from you. Basically, it's either as I said, it's either motivated you or dejected. Say, okay, we're still in the same position that we after they've said anything, that those might not change anything in our lives. I need that view from you.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. I would firstly like to say that we welcome the presentation from Mr. Abungile and his colleague. Your presentation, like always, ever since the small-scale fishing cooperatives were implemented, your presentations are always professional and on point. And I've only got one problem. None of those presentations have ever been implemented, but nevertheless, well presented. Let's start with the first one. I would like to put this question direct to Mr. Abongile because I think him sitting at that table, he represents everybody else because I think he's the highest principal on the table, if I'm not correct. All right, thanks. Mr. Abongile, been given the office and the responsibility to champion the small-scale fishing cooperative model. I would like to know, out of the 200 co-ops that you mentioned that you got in your office and championing, what is your success rate ever since this has been implemented? How many cooperatives can you stand up and say, out of these cooperatives, we've got X amount that are successful and operating 100% with minimum challenges on board? Okay. Then secondly, I want to know what's the difference between rights versus permission. Now, let me elaborate quickly on that. We are small-scale fishing communities. We were given the rights to participate in the ocean economy. Now, my understanding as a layman, when you give somebody the rights to do something, you're giving them permission. But we find ourselves still having to apply to exercise those same rights. So I'll give you a quick example. I've got here our rights that we have been given by the department, and attached to these rights are our allocated species that we allowed to participate in harvesting, and also the limited amount. But what confuses this whole model is that in order for us now to harvest what's in these rights, we still have to go and apply for a permit. Now the question is, you've given me rights, why must I still apply for a permit? Now, we understand the permit when it comes to the use of vessel and the what can I say? What is the word? But the qualification or the full specification of a vessel entering into the ocean, that we understand. But when it comes to our right to harvesting, we shouldn't be applying for permits for lionfish, because you have given it to me in my basket on my rights. Why am I still applying for lionfish permit? You've given me East Coast lobster, but why can't I sell it? Because in my rights, you say, the department says they've given us rights to harvest East Coast rock lobster, but they prohibit the sale of this. But at the same time, they've sent us buyers to sign contracts to sell. So there's been a huge contradiction between us, the department, the buyer, and the actual right of the East Coast rock lobster. You cannot give me rights to something and then you say, I cannot sell it. So why am I harvesting it? You see, the rights say we are prohibited to sell, but you guys say we need to be part of the ocean economy. How are we going to participate in this if we don't have the rights to sell it? You see?
Thank you.
This is so unfair. This is so unfair. The presentation was more than 15 minutes. Now you expect us to someone else on the improvement. If we can confirm this, we can sit about to community, how will be that?
Who's going to help us translating now? We'll tell us what the
But it says it's together.
Kalau kan elke jaar 10% permits bekry, dat is equal as between commercial fishing. Maar ons skoon het ons baie opgedoen, dat wanneer ons permits, wat ons so lank was, en die Saterdag is die is July, wanneer ons permits gekry het.
Okay, so the question in this regard, the first question is apparently there was a promise made that the quotas, the small scale quotas would increase every year by 10%, so that eventually that it would then equal the commercial rights holders. And the question is really, when is this going to kick in? And also, when are they going to get their permits?
Thanks.
Because there's no working between Bekukade phayana kukhona iikhampani ezisuka kooMarket Town ezizibiza Lusitania abantu ezibiza basitshintsha amagama xa befika kwintsika lethu kwazibizela. Mhlawumbi ngathi umntu ungubovine fishing ntontoni omnyama ngathi ungu-line fish bangawasebenzisa amagama phaya kulaa cala seCape Town bazawusebenzisa amagama weli cala. So phayana ikhona imali ekhoyo because abantu abaninzi bebexhomela kule nto losa besebenzisa yona so bexhomekeke direct kuyo. So ivele ke ngokunana i-department yayeka ugranta aba bantu bethenga i-permits uba kukho le program. Le program iyahamba but vele silungu unyaka wesihlanu lo ngona simsimile kungekho nto icathayo. So besisho ndingaqala ndivele phaa nge-2 minutes abantu baphela. Kodwa yena kwezi trainings ezisenziwa ngo-Oceana eza training ezilana zithatha i-2 days azenelanga because bekubona umcimbi wokubana kwi-cooperatives ingxaki yabalungu abanye abafundanga and at the time kusonyulwa i-board members ngelaa xesha kwakuministry cooperatives kwakungajongwa umntu uba utheni kwakusonyulwa umntu ongahle angakwazi ukukhokhela. So kusinaloo ngxaki leyo ngokunana umntu siyahambe sikwi-training uthole ukuthi uyabuza uya kwabe kusithiwane kuba so zezinye nje izinto ezisibuyisele emva lezo. Okokugqibela kule mcimbi we-permits lo uhlala uthini inyani siyasinikeza i-permits nangoku sinazo i-permits. Kodwa ke ngokwengxaki ezi permits zozokuthini because i-lobster le ithathethwe kakhulu apha kuthi kulaa district yethu ePhayimantama iyaphelelwa mhla wokugqibela October. So ezi permits bekuthiwa masizithini kahle kahle because ngoku kwenzeka abantu bayazibamba inantsika yezinto bayasebenza lulwandle uvele amapolisi laa department kuthiwa compliance abantu babaleke bophuma izinto because abantu bazawuphinde zakubhamba bahamba ngabona eziyi-24 nangayi-25 abe bafike bagqola ulwandle baleka abantu. Into ezakwenzeka kwaphayana uba ngakubulekiwe wabantu uzothi hayi ushonesa because uyayazi uba ndim okhoyo phayana and lo akakho mbuso wamlungu safane nomntango baya nge-3,000 kwezo nto ziphetheyo athathelwe i-cruiser ne-equipment yayo yokuloba athathelwe izinto zakhe athathelwe iintlandi zakhe le nto ezawuyitya.
From our Tambo, we have got a challenge, especially on our high responsibility species called Socio-Economic. Previously, we used to get buyers, we used to sign contractual agreements with buyers. That process was facilitated by DRDAR. There were companies which were coming from West Coast who use other names to trade within our Tambo area. It's the 5th year now since that has stopped. We got the permits, but we can't use these permits because we don't have buyers in place. Why the department stopped these buyers? Because we were more benefiting from selling of East Coast Rock lobster because East Coast Rock lobster is our highest source of species. Secondly, the issue of trainings which were given by Oceana, facilitated by the department. Those trainings were good. Those were 2-day training which were offered. But the challenge that we got, the people who were nominated to attend those trainings are people who, when they were interacted with after the trainings, they couldn't actually tell us what was happening in the training. Which I think it was as the result of the people who were nominated to this board of directors. Some of them, they were not lucky enough to go to school, so they couldn't understand those trainings. So we had that challenge. Thirdly, we've got permits that we have. The department issue permits each and every year, but we can't use these permits because we don't have buyers in place. Lastly, we've got a big issue around the law enforcement officials from the department. They chase our people, they chase the fishers, they come up with a huge fleet of cars to the range of 24 and more. vehicles patrolling the coastline. And they chase those people, they harass them, they give them big fines, like at the rate of 2,000 rand per fine. They confiscate the fishing equipment which are used by these people to benefit themselves. So, which is a big challenge. So that's all I wanted to say from what come of Belgium. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ungethamsanqa ke-Utyova ndithi apha phantsi komathole sinokhopolotye nabalishumi elisibhozo abaye baqhamla ekuthini basayine isivumelwano nepartner eyi-Wild Coast Company. Kodwa ku-DFFE ndiyabhena kwisitengwa le department isibambezele singenzi into nje kungenxa yokuaplayishelwa kwezi-permits kodwa safumana amalungelo eminyakeni yakhe. Ndiyafuna ukuthi i-department le inkonka ekuthini singakwazi ukusebenza singokhopolotyi. Yini nabahlekazi kutheni le nto esinidingayo kungenzeki into ukubheka phambili side siye phambilini ukwenzela kuzosuka eziko emakhayeni ethu.
I've saved minutes. The last comment.
Okay, from
That's prioritize your comment.
From Aman it's important that we've got 18 cooperatives that signed the contract agreement with Wild Coast Avalon to do the Avalon regime. We were issued the rights long time ago, but we never exploit those rights, or we never use those rights. I dedicate that to the department. I call the department that the department is the one which was obstructing the process. I'm appealing to the department, I'm appealing to senior managers of the department to please help us with this so that we can have the progress. It's been a long time that we received the rights, but still now we can't benefit from those rights. So the department is the one which is an obstacle with the progress in terms of moving forward, especially around the Avalon branch. So I'm appealing to you, DFFE, to please remove those obstacles so that we can be able to use our rights. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to quickly take a couple of seconds just to read through everything because I'm obviously not going to be able to elaborate on it because I haven't been given enough time. So the things that I've noted down on here that I want to express is one, the success rate which I've already gone through, two, the rights versus permission, three, educational programs to the small scale fishing module, 4, commercial versus small scale, 5, public apology from the minister to small scale for lying and misleading cooperatives. She promised them 20 vessels and it was a lie. Oceans economy provincial project, customer service education on small scale, and why should we compare small scale with commercial? Okay, I'm going to quickly just try and do my best to run through these things. Okay, the apology from the minister that we want is that the minister promised us 26 vessels on the day when our rights were issued to us. Up till to date, we still haven't received not one. And when she said this, she said the boats were ready for distribution. This was not done, and we accept, and we would like to request an open and public apology from the minister or the minister's office. Commercial versus small scale. commercial fishermen have always been harvesting and gaining from the ocean economy, but small scale has never. But because of commercial, small scale has been put on the back foot. If you read our rights, most of our rights in the comment section, it will tell you that everything is due to the expiry of line fish in 2021, but nothing has happened. The line fish for commercial have expired in 2021, but they still have been given exemptions. They're still fishing. Nothing has happened. The department promised that they'll take 50% from commercial and give it to small scale. This still hasn't been done. And this is that's held us back on working. Right? I'm just going to leave that one like that. The ocean economy provincial budget. I've noticed that every year when the Premier presents his budget for the province, ocean's economy is always listed, but we never get to see the input from that ocean's economy budget from the Premier. Right? I look at that sign that says ocean economy and the estimated amount that the ocean economy can inject is 177 billion to the province. Currently, it's only getting 55 billion. Now, in the presentation of DFFE, they said it will take them 400 and something million to go through this problem. Now, my question is, if you only need 400 million to create a success, to gain 177 billion, why wouldn't you? It makes sense to invest 400 million to gain 177 billion, but why isn't this done? That's a question you guys need to answer. To wrap this up, I'm going to close this up now. You made a comment on your presentation regarding commercial and small scale. My question to you is, why are you comparing small scale to commercial? We know we're close to commercial fishermen. We might be given commercial rights with regards to our basket limits, but we're not commercial fishermen yet. So the department should stop comparing us. Last but not least, Mr. Abongile, we phoned several times to your customer service, and your customer service ladies will tell us straight, Mr. Mayor, we do not know anything about small scale. We've only been educated on commercial. We cannot help you. So please educate your customer service on small scale and the rights that small scale fishermen have. And our proposal to the department is, since they've admitted, they've given us admission of guilt of all their mistakes and the gaps that they've created, and they promised to rectify them. Now we are small scale of putting a proposal. Why are you fixing the gaps that you have admitted to, Mr. Abongile? We request an exemption to participate in harvesting from the ocean until you guys are able to put a proper module that speaks direct to small scale fishermen. Thank you very much.
Thanks for you. Let's give a chance to, but definitely we can't be expecting that they will restart the presentation. I'm sure they will summarize, and some other things might be addressed outside this platform. We don't have all the time.
All right. Thank you very much, colleagues, for the reflections, inputs, and sentiments. First of all, let me say they are valid for various reasons, but it does not mean that all of them are factual. And we are here today to share information and to craft a way forward. I will maybe start with Mr. Mayor. The issue of success of cooperatives is relative, first of all. You might recall on your constitution what you indicated you wanted to achieve and what you have done as a cooperative and what the department has done to the cooperatives, right? There are many cases whereby we can point and say, here's a cooperative. It is successful with its own challenges. One of those cooperatives is represented by the gentleman sitting next to you. If he would tell you the annual turnover of their cooperative, you'll get an idea of what I'm talking about. I'm just making a practical example. Yes, there are many cooperatives that are not where we would want them to be. We expected that. If you look at the success rate of any small business in South Africa, success rate is very low. We knew that. We are talking about teething problems here. Even after we resolve all the challenges that you addressed today, tomorrow there will be new challenges. That's the unfortunate truth. What is important for us to do is to acknowledge issues that you have raised, more especially the valid issues, and we take them seriously, such as the issue of customer services who is unable to assist you. It's our mandate as government to assist you, and that is squarely our fault as a department. I don't even want to say it's customer services, it's us in the department. Oh, what is also important to note is that in South Africa, all the marine living resources, they belong to all of us. For us as government or as a department, we are custodians, citizenry for everyone. And then we allocate rights to people who make a living out of those rights. Those rights belong to the state or their custodian. We are custodians as the state. So when we give you those rights, we are saying we give you 15-year fishing rights, as all your cooperatives have 15-year fishing rights. The difference between that and a permit is that every year we need to make sure that whatever you take out of the sea, it's in line with the maximum sustainable yield. What does that mean? We don't want an open season whereby you can catch as much as you can every day. At the end of the day, the resource is going to decline. So each and every year, there is a scientific recommendation that would say we can only allow so many 10-meter boats in the line fish for this season, based on the scientific study that has been done. And hence the permits that are issued annually, they are based on scientific sound decision that says if we allow 422 vessels in the line fish sector, the resource is going to be sustainable in order for you to continue fishing. That's why you need an annual permit over and above a fishing right. What a fishing right basically says, it says you have a right to participate in this particular type of fish species. Then the annual permits tell you that you can only catch so much, or you can only use these types of fishing gears in order for you to catch. The line fish, you need a 10-meter vessel to fish. You get allocated a total number of boats that you can use as a cooperative. The following year, that number of boats that you can use can increase based on how those particular species are behaving. In the lobster sector, you can be told that you can only catch 10 tons this season, but next season, maybe you might say 8 tons because the stock itself is declining or the stock is increasing and then you are given more. That's why it's important for us to have annual permits. What the department has done, if you compare to the commercial sector, all the small-scale fishing cooperatives don't pay a cent for their permits as compared to the commercial sector. And what we do as well we have permits that we deliver to cooperatives, noting that we only have one office that processes permits in the Eastern Cape, which is in East London. Part of the permits are processed in Cape Town. We go and deliver those permits. The issue of East Coast Rock Lobster, I am confirming you are allowed to sell East Coast Rock Lobster. What the department does on an annual basis, because the regulations are still indicating that East Coast Rock Lobster is not for sale, we apply to the DDG or to the delegated authority for you to sell East Coast Rock Lobster on an annual basis. We do apply for that. And the allocation or the tonnage that is allocated to you as a cooperative is more than the tonnages that are allocated, for example, to communities and some of the companies in the Western Cape. The biggest challenge I'm going to link is to what was indicated by the gentleman under OR term with the East Coast Rock Lobster. He is correct. There are about 5 companies that were actively purchasing East Coast Rock Lobster, and that was a good source of income for communities. COVID hit and the markets closed because bulk of lobster, whether East Coast, South Coast, or West Coast, finds itself in Asian countries. And the markets closed, many companies closed doors because of that. As a department, we are still actively looking for companies that can come in and start trading with the cooperatives of East Coast Rock Lobster. That's one of the reasons why we are working closely with WWF, whereby they are implementing a fisheries improvement project specifically on East Coast Rock Lobster, whereby we can attract companies that can do business with you on East Coast Rock Lobster. Some of the companies that tried after COVID are still, they are here in this room. They will tell you the general challenges that are there. One of the challenges is the high operating costs. The roads are bad in the Eastern Cape. It's very difficult for companies to go all the way to the rural areas where fishers are and be able to carry that lobster. You will have high mortality rates. In other areas where you have to establish a factory or fish processing plants, you find out that there's no phase 3 electricity and you can't operate a proper plant moving forward. The Chalimangosi cooperative that has a factory has that problem. They don't have phase 3 electricity, they can't operate optimally. The roads are bad, high maintenance issues. So those are practical things that are there. That's why business companies, they will look at all of these things and then their appetite would be less than what we would want it to be. Then on the issue of close to wrapping up. Okay, I will just summarize all of this. So the issue of squid, we allocated 10% to the small scale fisheries sector, and the approval was like the TAP will increase up to 25% depending on the need. Currently, there's a litigation between the department and the squid commercial sector whereby they are challenging the decision that we took to allocate some allocation to small scale, and that matter will sit next year in February. The department is defending that issue. And also issue of training, totally agree. 2 days is never enough. The health studies that indicates that training is not as impactful. What is impactful is a mentorship program. Some of the colleagues might have known or seen that we have advertised for position for mentorship program for small scale throughout the Eastern Cape. The advert closed, I think, was on the 15th of June. We are in the process of doing the recruitment process to allocate a mentor for each and every cooperative that is in the Eastern Cape. Those mentors will be paid for by the department. Lastly, I'm just going to give Usindisa the issue of the Abala ranching that starts from Amatole open governments.
So just quickly want to explain the issue of the urban ranching. It's part of what I had mentioned. One of the reasons why the department has obviously given the rights, particularly to small scale, is for the cooperatives to benefit optimally from these rights. Right? Now, particularly for the urban ranching, what we realized, what we got was there was a process where cooperatives needed to intervene to communicate with the department and show the interest that we want to participate in the urban ranching, and it's part of the regulations. What we then identified was that cooperatives had entered and Nyansiya into an agreement with a company, World Coast Urban, I think. But now the department, because as much as we are saying, our core mandate is to keep fishing permits. But again, as a department, it is our responsibility to ensure that the cooperative benefits optimally. What we then realized through the contract that was signed between the two parties, there was a 51-49 agreement, which is all these cooperatives, as many as they are, would be getting a 49% of in this deal, and the company, which is Volcos Avalon Enterprise, whatever, would be getting 51% of this deal. And the contract that we had since gotten was that whatever the company puts into this deal, the corporate will have to pay back. Will have to pay the company that has given this information.
Let's not go to the detail of it here. Just take it on top and
okay.
So,
So putting it there, the reason why it has been slated is that the department wanted to offset some of those things so that cooperatives do not have to bear the brunt of some of these things that are required. Hence, the department has entered into the process of a service provider, and the department has started the process. By July, we should have a service provider, and we had updated the corporate to say that the department has now taken that upon itself to say we will find funding within the department to pay the service provider to ensure that all of these things that are required, the department pays for, so that when you continue with your contract with whatever agreement, some of these things do not have to be paid for by yourselves, so that we move forward. So that has been the whole whereby the department does not want to blindly sign things, and at the end of the day, these cooperatives are in debt and they do not benefit. It is the same as within the squid sector, the issue of contracts, and we continuously advise. So it is exactly the same. And I just wanted to, there was a question in terms of whether we're getting your permits. Remember, colleagues, the issue of permits, this season, particularly for squid, the season starts on the 1st of July, right? And we had kind of, I think, a month or two ago, to explain the permit conditions. And every year, permit conditions that get updated. So we explained the permit conditions and explained to say that at this particular point, you will be able to apply for the permits. Now, cooperatives applied for the permits last week. There's a 7-day turnaround time for the department to process permits, right? So we need to ensure that as cooperatives, as we apply, we're applying for permits, we apply in advance, because if you apply for a permit last week Monday, and by Thursday you want your permit, and the department obviously has quite a number of permits to go through. So we are facing that whereby we have to process permits, and the cooperatives need to make sure that they apply for permits ahead of time. Thank you very much.
Thanks, colleagues from TFF for the comprehensive. I know Class Muzana will find it difficult to satisfy all the questions. We've got a chance of engaging outside. I know as government, we do make platforms where we engage with our clients. I've seen here when we're presenting to say there's a bit of communication gap between the cooperatives and the DFF. I think some things that we need to work on so that the questions are more, some of the issues are clarified on a regular basis and people get advised on this. We did get a comfort of what are the key challenges that are facing the small scale fishers. I think things that have been raised here are the burning issues that are facing the sector. We did get all of that. I want us to go to the floor. Someone here about at least 2 minutes. I would like, I'm not gonna, within the limits of time, we would like more inputs. And I want to go to the floor now. I don't want question and answer session. I would like people who are input positive, try to help us get more input in getting to the strategy interventions. We don't want to get another question and answer session. There's a hand there, the mic might turn it up. The person was there. I noticed what you raised is like second when I said, when it comes here, number 3 is here. I would like, I want, we've got number 3 here. Let's take number 4 there. We'll take number 5 from Muslim. From Muslim. That's my number 5. Number 6 is gonna be, we've got it right in that number. Let's take this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 there, 6 here, 7 there, 8. We've got 8 comments. I'm not giving platform for people to make presentations. I'm just providing platform for people to comment. We've had enough presentations. Now let's just put comments and also input towards the strategy. Thanks.
Thank you very much. It's Maribo Tayin, municipality. Thank you very much, Chairperson of the session. Last week, I attended an Africa Free Trade session. It was similar to this session. And there was quite a glaring issue which was concerning to attendees, that these sessions tend to be talk shows. Now, the reason why I'm standing up, I'm trying to make sure that maybe this one as well does not become part of the talk shows, and then we go back to our municipalities and there is no progress. One of the few issues that I have observed as part of an input is that as municipalities and stakeholders, we are working in silos. And one of the propositions that I wanted to put on the table is that why that municipalities and stakeholders for this session formulate a working group to focus on working streams that will put together all the stakeholders on a quarterly basis to quite monitor the progress of the agreements or whatever inputs that we get into these sessions or similar sessions. That is the first issue I wanted to propose, because the ocean economy value chain is quite extensive and wide, and we need to exploit it for rural communities and improve, particularly impoverished communities. So my suggestion is that we will not achieve what we want to achieve until OR Tambo, Amatole, Oha municipality, and various stakeholders work together, form work streams, meet, have timeframes to meet. If we take it further, that a memorandum of agreement from those coastal municipalities in a quest to help their municipalities to sign a memorandum of agreement with the relevant departments, with a clear plan of our coastline. How do we exploit the opportunities that are there? How do we help small scale fisheries? Because currently we are really working in silos. Lastly, In our interactions as Goha municipality, because there is a challenge of fishermen not having access to boats whilst they have permits. And most of them are forced to sell their permits with quite next to nothing. One of the commercial companies that are building boats have quite availed themselves to develop boats and hire them to fishermen. But those opportunities cannot be exploited because we are not working in a collective. Everyone is working in his own corner. So to start in a session, if anyone else can put it in a quite nice way, but it won't help us to work in silos. We need a platform where we would convert, even if it's quarterly, making submissions and all of those issues to ensure when the budget of government is reflected in each and every budget speech, it actually reflects what has been discussed and agreed in the work streams of the stakeholders. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No. Yeah. Okay. Okay. No, thank you. I think from the larger speaker, I don't need to repeat myself. I'm Tumela again from ECSECC Rural Development Agency. With the quest to try to support the aquaculture initiative and fisheries, we've been doing the rounds of the municipalities. So I think the work stream part, I think, will also assist very much. But the issue of us talking about the small scale fishers, especially the deep rural ones that do not, don't have access to electricity, to the issue of the road and everything. I think next time it would be wise to also include them, because you'll find that some of these entities that are supporting small scale fisheries, they don't go directly to those villages. So I think we should also keep that, maybe also include it in one of the department's initiatives, so that we know who are our gatekeepers when it comes to our small scale fisheries. And then the issue of capacity development when it comes to our officials. Some of us might be prone, like the officials from DFFE, to know about the terminology and the sector. Some of us, most officials who are working with these small scale fisheries do not know anything about aquaculture and fisheries. So I think one of also the key priorities when it comes to this work stream, capacitating officials from your provincial level downwards to your extension officers at the department, so that we know when we talk of support in terms of your aquaculture project, we know what we are talking about. So we are not found downfunded. So I think that in that aspect of the issue of collaboration and also capacity, I can just add it on that. Thank you.
Okay, number 60.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, colleagues. Can you hear me? Okay. Good afternoon, colleagues. Someone was on. I'm Nobatim from Eastern Cape Rural Development Agency Communications Unit. I work with Ms. Jan over there. The first speaker spoke to, it looks like we were in the same room last night. Because I am trying to say the issue of access to roads is a burning one. It's been a burning one, even in the agricultural sector. If only we could have a working stream within the Department of Public Works, rope in all the departments that can be meaningful and be effective in ensuring that we move through our mandate. Honestly, we don't make it as short as honestly it always looks like. And also, I would suggest that a mentorship program, like Tumela says, we don't know what fisheries is about, we're not aquaculture is about. The people who are right on the ground are the ones who know. We don't even know what kind of fish looks like. We don't even know what the squid looks like. We know when it's on the table. So, they are the ones who know how to even spot it. So those are the things. And mentorship program, even from JFE, if there could be somebody who's a specialist who ensure that there's a mentorship program that literally is running in the province, so that there is somebody and there is a process of reporting and there's a process of meetings and everything is managed and known that we're doing this now at this point in time so that it can benefit our farmers. Because right now they come to these sessions. We came to East London and talked about this. We came to Mossel Bay, talked about this. 2 months down the line, nothing is happening. There's no feedback, there's nothing. There's no, not even a more time that they can call. So we call the more time, the rest of the government.
I want to know, Mama, look, if she was close enough to me, I would have given her a big hug. That lady knows what she's talking about. She's already done an assessment of what is going on, and she summarized it. There's confusion within the department. The department itself does not know what it's implementing. That's why, you know, I used to be a ward councillor. And sometimes when Pascal comes to address the IDP to the community, they say, "Council, when it's whilst UMM has drafted a very well audited presentation that will be read by somebody that does not even understand the IDP themselves." Now, why am I saying that? Why am I saying that? I'm saying that because year in and year out, government spends money on these conferences, but each department comes with a scripted presentation that was done by somebody that's sitting in University of Walter Sisulu or UKF. This is your president. This is what you will present. Now, you must understand something. When somebody presents something, you can see the presentation versus the implementation. It's an ongoing thing, just change of dates. The presentation that we've been getting from them is the exact presentation that they've given us now. The only difference is that they've acknowledged mistake and they're trying to rectify it without coming back to us. Now, let me tell you something. You cannot do research in Port St. John's and say you've done research on small scale. You cannot do research in the oceans or the coastline, just say Port St. John's, and you say you've done justice to your research here. You've never come to Wild Coast. You've never done a survey on Wild Coast. You don't even know what fish is fishing in Wild Coast. I'll give you an example. We have been given the baboon fish as our right, but the baboon fish is in Mozambique. Now, who did the research? No, let's be honest. We're here to help one another. Yes, we're here to educate one another. Now, we are the fishermen. You guys have been employed because of your university degrees. But practically, you guys know nothing. Why? You'll have used your degrees and your literature to make your statements and try to implement something that you haven't practically done yourselves. Why are you not? I say this every year I get invited to a conference. I say, guys, come to us as fishermen and ask us what are the challenges. Stop making your own decisions based on a university degree. It does not work. Small scale fishing and subsistence fishing has got nothing to do with the university degree. You do not need a degree to go and fish. You need a degree to go and do research on how much fish in the water, and you don't need a degree to fish. And now you all take degrees and you're trying to implement on small scale. Now, I'll give you an example, Mr. Abongile. That lady made a very interesting comment about using apartheid modules to try and implement small scale whilst we've come out of apartheid. In Wild Coast, we've got an MPA, which is the Mtientu Marine Reserve. It was an apartheid implemented MPA. More than 40 years, that MPA has been closed. That MPA has reproduced itself 4 times in the normal cycle of a 10-year closure. Because an MPA is closed for 10 years and it's recycled and it's moved to another space. That area has recycled itself 4 times over the normal standard. But still today, Mtientu hasn't been opened to small scale. Where do you want us to fish? Now, you guys have given us rights, but you're still allowing KZN white commercial fishermen to come and fish in Eastern Cape. These people got permits in KZN, but they launch it in Port Edward and they're fishing up on the Eastern Cape. How is that possible? They're supposed to fish down from Port Edward, go down into KZN waters. But where are the commercial fishermen from Port Edward fishing? They're fishing in Eastern Cape waters. Why? The Department of DRDAR has allowed them to. So what is left for us? Nothing. Now, you made a comment or you tried to answer me on my question, Mr. Abongile, as to the difference between rights and a permit. But it's clear that either my question didn't come through clearly, you didn't hear me properly, but you did not answer my question. I'll tell you why. If you open the rights, I've got it in front of me, versus your answer. The rights clearly state that you have got the rights to harvest, and it gives you your basket limit, which your comment was that the reason to apply for a permit is to control the basket limit. No, you don't have to. We've got it in our rights. We've got it in our rights. Now, you guys as the department have got your security, I'll call it security, that when a boat comes out of the water, that person comes with his book and he checks, okay, based on your permit for your license to fish, okay, have you caught the regulated amount? Now that information goes back to you guys as the department and answers your question, Mr. Bongile, that in the year 2023, 100 tons of East Coast rock lobster was fished at Wild Coast. Because why? The Department of DRDAR takes records when you come out of the water. Why do you still want us to apply for a permit to show you once you've already employed people to control us when we come out of the water? Okay, let me wrap it up by saying now, the last thing that you didn't answer, there was a comment made by my colleague with regards to the department. The department is very, 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 very good in implementing law enforcement, but they're not good to educate their people. The department runs a record with fishermen on the beach. We get shot at, we get taken our fish away from us, everything. Where does that fish go to? That fish that you'll take away from us at the beach, you'll donate it to KZN, Ushaka Marine World. To feed what? To feed the fish and the dolphin. While we starve because your official has taken it away from us. So please, we're going to say this for the last time. Please make sure your law enforcement officials are educated, and also the community, the fishing communities are equally educated to help one another so that the system can work on its own. Thank you. Thank you.
Kodwa kuba ngabantu abeseqongeni ndinemigawu oluthika. Engathi mina abanendlela zokuva lideni ilizwi. DFF yonke le nto niyaqaphela uba ziwakuni okokoko. Singale kuni okokoko noba ngamatye noba ngamakanda kodwa tsho kwesiqoqosini. Yini na kaloku mzontsundu kuba xa ndijongile kule nitafile ndibona umzontsundu wodwa. Kutheni le nto nisiyekela okanye nisenjinji? Nenza ntoni ngathi? Kutheni le nto abantwana bomgquba ingathi nini ababanyashayo? Uba ngabana umntu elembile ndithetha ngengquba. Uworld Health Abaloy wayezengo-DFF uthi for thina sishishile ngokutyala amanqaba. Kodwa ikwangu-DFF obambezele ukuba sizinto sihambe. Kuba kutheni? Ubani usentshona wenza zonke ezi zinto zingahambeli indawo. Uba kukho isizathu sixelelele uba senza imistakes. Ngokuba sithi singoosomashishini abakumkhezo wolwandle nabanenjongo zoba makutyiwe emakhayeni wethu, nabanenjongo zoba siphuhle, singaphuhli nje thina kuphela kodwa siphuhlise abantwana bethu. Ngoba ekugqibeleni yonke le nto siyenzayo ngomso sizawugqitha thina kodwa abantwana bethu bazihlalele khona beyazi okoba abazali bethu babeqangathe apha. Ayaphela amanqaba ngamasela mina ibambe yonke into ibendaweni nithetha ngo-59%, no-49%, uyintloko 49%, no-51% kuni. Kutheni nabanye uyasiyeki siqhubekeke uzongena ithiki ndaweni empingangeni. Kutheni? Sikulungele okokuba sisebenze sizoxhamla kodwa sibanjwe uDFF. Akasibambanga nje usibopha amanqina ngezandla. Ekugqibeleni uyibona andifuna uyithetha le nto. Nina zi-officials sinibona ngoku sanibona emva kweminyaka emithathu kwakhona. Akuphinde kwathi sihlanganise lo mhlobo enorhulumente. Kutheni le nto kunjalo? Kutheni le nto funeka sikhabakhabe ukuze sikwazi ukubona ngaloo mini nibe nizonqanda uba siyoyikise sithi occupy i-office. Then kule mbananisi nisidlali amaphepha wahambeli ndawo ukutya nje kwempuphu. Ndiyanicela ke ngoku ekugqibeleni le into idibanisa ipatna yokopoloteni abalapha apha emathole kwesamathole. Ndiyacela khe ndikhululele hakhe bakhe kahle.
I mind us of it. Now, Mama, listen, passionately, I want to say passionately, can we listen and stuff and be responsive and stuff with what outcomes, vision, and all that. Can we just be responsive, listen and be responsive? I'm going to see if we are ready to see things for the fella, and it's one platform of myself, and one of our crash. It's like farmers' days. One of the farmers' days about the shop. Because the place to me, every year is the end over. So food such. Yeah. For the platform, we said it's information day. About my side, I was in the well. The fair as if I know lunch, eating dates, about what was running as well in the kitchen. We just one, the first and then one. So there. There are movements among departments. So we get information like one chance of no self about. Malumi 30 seconds.
So umkhombandlela sizibhile izikhalazo sizibhalile phansi into ebaluleke ezintathu. One, I think this is mentioned. I think we need to intensify on education and awareness, because there is a huge misunderstanding on the program of government and the mandate of government. It might be our fault for that, you know. Two, the issue here about branching. We indicated, Yolanda, we went to court and defended the position in cooperatives for a big mistake they made. If the cooperatives are insisting that they want to go ahead with the Avalon branching, I'm taking a decision as a person who is mandated to, that the cooperatives can go ahead, and we are going to, according to their plans. Then lastly, I do agree with them. We need to work together as government officials. But what is very important is for the education that will need to take place moving forward. Thank you.
Okay. They are saying, let's be responsible. Let's listen. Sing our status people with that passion. I can do that. Lo citizen from unikeza nje zababona emva koko ilunch akunikeza unikeza ilunch is going to serve fana phezulu ICC side kuma kwekala okanye ukabele reception reception.
Okay, over to you.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. It's really lovely to be here and to hear all the comments, all the proposed interventions. Also sad to hear about the challenges, but challenges are a part of life. They're like death and taxes. They will always be with us. Yeah. And to start off with my presentation, I want to start here. South Africa is a beautiful place. And in my opinion, I'm from Limpopo, by the way. In my opinion, the Eastern Cape is probably the most beautiful, but that is my opinion. Yes, just don't tell the people from Limpopo that I said that. Yeah, so in saying that, so South Africa and the Eastern Cape is blessed with a lot of beautiful natural resources, nice wide open spaces. We are blessed with a beautiful ocean that we have out there. And even in that ocean, we have a wide variety of species. South Africa is one of those places which is a biodiversity hotspot. So there's a lot of variety in our oceans, which adds to the complexity of the challenges as well. And on top of that, unfortunately, South Africa, as being blessed with such natural resources, we are also, for lack of a better word, cursed by the inequalities that we have in our country. Our country, unfortunately, is one of those countries that is likely to be impacted very hard by issues like climate change. We have issues of inequality. We have issues of lack of access to resources, especially here in the Eastern Cape. It's probably one of the most rural provinces and one of those provinces that need the most intervention. And I'm really glad that we have this forum whereby we are here to discuss strategies and interventions that we can do here in the Eastern Cape to improve not just the lives of fishers, but also to ensure that the fishers operate in an environment that is sustainable, and also that they can also be able to benefit from the natural resources that we have. So as part of WWF strategy, we are working in several streams as WWF. And in order for us to ensure that there is a future in which people and nature can thrive. So in order for people to thrive, also nature should be able to thrive, because we get all of the resources that we need from nature. So we have a 6-point strategy at WWF. I didn't realize that the wording is so small. Even I can't speak there. So we, the first part of our strategy is actually to ensure that we can introduce regenerative practices that are sustainable, that are also equitable, and so that we can also ensure that small producers like small-scale fisheries will be able to participate in. The second strategy that second area of work that we work in is ensuring that our freshwater resources are adequately protected. As you know, South Africa is one of those water scarce countries, and we want to ensure that those freshwater resources are protected adequately. On the third intervention that we are working at is to ensure that there is a just transition in the climate space, and also to ensure that we input in terms of putting together relevant climate adaptation strategies as well, especially within coastal communities that are marginalized, because they are the ones that usually lack the most resilience in terms of climate change. They're the most impacted, but also they lack the resources to be resilient to those climatic changes. We also work in the area of expanding protected areas, but also not just expanding. We also want to ensure that the protected areas that are there are actually functional and they serve a real purpose in terms of conserving, for example, in the marine space, the fish species that our communities rely on. The fifth pillar that we're working on is ensuring that there is a transition in the financial space, so that financial flows can also flow towards more sustainable projects. Some of the projects that were presented today, like the oyster project, so projects like that, like the oyster nursery projects, projects that enable a sustainable blue economy are financed adequately. And on the last intervention that we work on as WWF is ensuring that there is local governance of marine resources. So instead of marine resources just being managed from a top-down with a top-down approach from national, we want to also ensure that within the local communities, there is adequate participation from all role players and stakeholders to ensure that natural resources are managed adequately within our communities. So in terms of the interventions that we are having in the Eastern Cape, that is just one of the pictures from a launch of one of our projects that was in Port St. John's with some of the East Coast rock lobster fishermen. So in terms of our interventions in the Eastern Cape, so we're looking to work on projects that are going to be unlocking a sustainable blue economy within the Eastern Cape province. We're also looking to ensure that we work on projects that enable climate resilience as well within, especially in coastal communities that we work with, to ensure that they're able to adapt to the coming changes in terms of climate change, and also ensuring that working on projects that ensure that the fisheries that we work with are sustainable and they'll be able to sustain the livelihoods that are dependent on them in the long run. But the overarching concept that we're working on is actually ensuring that there is adequate environment for enabling that sustainable blue economy, and there is principles that are also attached to that sustainable blue economy, unlocking that sustainable blue economy, so that we ensure that the projects that we are having actually protect the natural environment, that they're compliant with all the relevant legislations. And one of the most important aspects is to ensure that these projects are aware of all the risks, the climate risks, the environmental risks, but also the social risks and economic risks as well. We want to ensure that the projects that we're implementing offer systemic changes, so not just changes at a local level, but also offering systemic changes throughout the value chains as well. The other very important element of our project is one of the things that was discussed here today, especially from the small-scale fishers. We want to ensure that these projects are inclusive so that no one is left behind, especially vulnerable coastal communities, so that they're also included in these processes, and so that they can be able to benefit as well. So we also want to ensure that the projects that we work in are also very transparent, and that everyone knows what is going on, and that adequate information is exchanged amongst all the parties involved. And also ensuring that these projects are very purposeful and that they serve other overarching goals. For example, the sustainable development goals as well. Looking at goals, sustainable goal 14, which speaks to sustainable use of marine resources. So that is part of the reason why we are here. So to ensure that we have the sustainable development and management of our marine resources. We also want to ensure that we apply a precautionary approach to all the projects that we are implementing to ensure that we do not overlook any unnecessary risks to the projects, and that we use the best scientific advice that is available to us to also guide in decision-making as well. And the other reason why we're here, we also want to ensure that the projects that we are involved in are solution-driven. So we want to ensure that there is adequate solutions that come from the projects that we implement. If we're implementing pilot projects, they must be able to enable other spin-offs and other projects to grow from that as well. So I'll be going into a bit more of examples of some of the projects that we've implemented in the Eastern Cape that we're currently implementing. So one of the projects that we are currently implementing, I think Andre Bock, who was here, I can't see him anymore, he spoke about this particular project where we are collaborating with Kingfisher and the Siazama Cooperative in Hamburg, whereby we are developing an oyster nursery within the KC estuary together with the cooperative there and Kingfisher. Kingfisher being our a strategic partner in terms of offloading their skills and expertise. As you know, and as Keegan has highlighted, the aquaculture sector is highly technical, and we need a lot of technical expertise if we are to actually ensure that we'll be able to make some of these projects work. And public, private, and community involvement is very key in this aspect in ensuring that we have successful projects like these. Another project that we are implementing also in Hamburg is our mussel rehabilitation and rotational harvesting project. That's also with the Hamburg community. Here we are partnering with Walter Sisulu University to ensure that the mussel beds in the Hamburg community are rehabilitated. And this project is not necessarily a commercial project whereby we're looking for the community to actually sell the mussels. Is actually to ensure that there is adequate food security, as the community in Hamburg are reliant on the harvesting of the mussels in terms of their food security and as part of the resources that they use to sustain their families. So this is just to enhance that, and also with that, bringing in that local management aspect, creating a local body that manages the rehabilitation and the rotational harvesting in that project. The other project that is less marine, but also very important in the marine space. We are developing a climate change art piece with the KC Gama Trust, along with the community of Hamburg, whereby they will be creating a climate change tapestry that hopefully will be displaying around the world. But this is a tapestry, and it's a way of using art to express the challenges that the communities have experienced in terms of climate change and the changes that the communities have seen through climate change, and using that art as a medium to actually express the views of the communities and to bring awareness about climate change within the community, while ensuring that the communities may actually benefit by creating the artwork and being able to sell that artwork to also support their livelihoods as well. One of the last projects that we have in the Eastern Cape is the East Coast Rock Lobster Fisheries Improvement Project that we are implementing in Port St. John's. So we are implementing this project with a few cooperatives in Port St. John's, looking to ensure that we improve the environmental sustainability of the East Coast Rock Lobster resource. So by that, we're looking at ensuring that there's adequate data that is being collected in terms of fisheries catch data, that is being collected by the communities to ensure that there is sustainable harvesting of the resource. We're also looking to ensure that we improve the co-management within the Port St. John's community by trying to implement adequate co-management structures. And that's a project that we're doing very closely in conjunction with GFFE. We also working in terms of the Fisheries Improvement Project to also try and investigate issues, the other social issues like the issues on the value chain, and looking at trying to create a coalition of partners to see how we can intervene in that regard as well. Yeah, so that's just a few of the interventions that we have within WWF. But as usual, we're also always looking to find more projects that we can be able to implement in terms of enhancing the livelihoods of the people in the Eastern Cape and ensuring that we have a sustainable environment as well. No, thank you very much.
We still to ask questions.
Oh, no problem.
Okay.
Anytime.
Let's ask them questions as a panel. I hope you are getting ideas about who you can approach to help develop some of your projects, especially our colleagues from municipalities. This is the resource that's available to help do the work. Last but not least, Rob, over to you. I think WUSU is one key institution we need to utilize. You know, we are only aware about Nelson Mandela Ocean Sciences campus. We are going to take comments after she's presented. And I'm sure the youth from Duncan Village, you need to engage WWFs on some ideas. Okay, Prof, over to you.
Good afternoon, colleagues, and thank you for the wonderful engagement since this morning. Mine is very small, and I don't have a presentation. And I don't have a presentation because my colleague, Dr. Glaser, was supposed to come and make the presentation. Unfortunately, he has not been able to be here. But nonetheless, one of the core businesses of employees or academic employees at Walter Sisulu University, among others, is community engagement. So it's mandatory for us to engage with the community that we interact with in all fields of research within the university. And based on that background, in 2020, the current administration designed, or rather came up with 10 research niche areas. And out of the 10, one of them is called Sustainable Marine and Freshwater Economic Development. And I am the principal investigator in this research niche area. And within this research niche area, we have other research groups, namely freshwater biology or ecology and aquaculture. And again, I'm the principal investigator there. Under aquaculture, we try to train students on how to formulate feeds for the purposes of aquaculture development. As we all know, that feed is very costly and not everybody can afford it, especially the communities that we interact with. So some of our postgraduate students, and one of them is here with me, Ms. Bondi Sanoluyolo, who has been formulating feed based on supermarket food waste, specifically fruit and vegetables. And we are happy to report that she's at the end of the project, and we have grown the red tilapia, which we brought from Riverdale, and we have grown them in the lab, and we have actually cooked them and tasted them yesterday. We were at STARDI, Solo Agricultural and Rural Development Institute, together with their home industry, and we were able to have several dishes based on fish that we raised in our lab with our postgraduate students. And for that, that is some skills transfer. And that is where we want to go in terms of capacity development in the area of our aquaculture. Other than that, from the freshwater, we do aquatic biomonitoring as well as ecotoxicology. So aquatic biomonitoring we do in the field, and ecotoxicology is basically laboratory based. Then we have the other research group, which is Marine and Coastal Research Group, led by Dr. Glaser and his team. And they deal a lot with the conservation of marine living resources, apart from mariculture, etc., etc. Then we have a research group that specifically focuses on water and sanitation. And we know the importance of that in our informal settlements and the outbreak of cholera and other waterborne diseases. And we also have the climate change mitigation and adaptation. And finally, we have tourism. Anything that impacts on water also impacts on tourism. So that is the research niche area. Now, when it comes to community engagement, where we come in, a lot has been said about aquaculture, and we have concentrated more on the marine aspects, but we still feel that we also need to engage in inland farming, hence the training that we do in our labs, although we don't have infrastructure, but we are trying what we can do given what we have. So how we come in helping the community is that the government and provincial governments come with policies, frameworks, but they are written in a language that only people with university degrees or matriculants can read. Now, how do we translate that to our communities? And that is how we think we can come in. Contracts are drawn. Communities of fisher folks get funding from CDC. They have to sign contracts. Some of them don't understand what they are pending their signatures on. And we feel as a university then we have the expertise from the legal fraternity. We can help them to understand these contracts, and they need to know their rights before they append their signatures. Then from the climate change point of view, and it has been talked about, we talk about aquaculture, we talk about mariculture, we use these big terms. But how do we disseminate this information to the rural communities? And that is the question I want people from DF to answer. If you give me a document or to apply for a loan at CDC, you know the form that you always fill. Why don't you make it accessible to our communities in a language that they will understand? That would go a long way, and we feel as a university that's where we can come in. Again, climate change. Do our communities understand how climate change impacts on biodiversity? Not all of them understand that. And we are saying as a university, we can help them understand, explain to them what it means. When they go out to catch fish and they don't get whatever they are used to getting, we need to explain to them that this is because of this, this, and that. If you just say climate change, it's a big word, but they need to know that changes in temperature, water quality does impact on the reproductive aspects of all living resources and also their biology. Some migrate from one place to another, and we need to give it to them in a language that they can understand. And that is where we feel as a university, we need to come in and assist our communities. Now, based on that background, last year, we started engaging with the Port St. John's fisher folks. There were 16 groups, primary co-ops, and we approached them how we can assist them in understanding all these aspects regarding the aquaculture value chain. And it was a one-day activity in Port St. John's. But then we realized that there were so many problems that we could not solve in one day. And to be able to understand their problems and assist them, we then organized a 3-day workshop at the university. We organized accommodation for 3 days. We transported them from and back to Port St. John's. And we had a very heated debate, just like almost similar to the one we had in the morning. And there were issues between the community and the government departments to an extent that we were scared because we didn't know how to handle the fight that there was. And thank God our director for internationalization and community engagement popped in just in the good time. And somebody mentioned that there was something put in Port St. John's. And that also brought an issue. As somebody said, it's sitting there, but it's idle, not being used. But the question is, has somebody gone to find out why it is not being used? Because that was the point of contention in our 3-day workshop. And words were exchanged, and it was not pleasant. The communities are suffering. They are frustrated. And we came out with resolutions, some of which I wanted to display here, but there are too many, we don't have enough time. And we are pleading with government departments at the university from climate change, from economics point of view, from fish biology, from aquaculture. We have the expertise. Is it possible to liaise with the university so that we can complement where you can't? Even if there were people who are saying just that they had applied for certificates for environmental impact assessment or something like that, and they had waited for 3 years, and they cannot engage. And yet we have people at the university, professors who have that expertise to provide that service to the community. And yet they have to go through the department. So as we deliberate, my thinking is that sometimes when we come up with frameworks, roadmaps, we need to find a way also how to disseminate the information to the community in a language that they can understand, whether it's through flow charts and, if possible, translated into the language that they can understand. If they apply for permits, whether it's fishing rights or what was the other, I also couldn't understand it, getting a permit and the fishing right. I couldn't understand it. I don't understand it either, because they were talking about they had permits, they were given permits, and some of them had not been able to utilize them because of ABCD. Then we talked about access to markets. They were saying that they would want also to access the external markets, the international market. They don't want to go through the middlemen. And there were real issues. And it kills you to hear how people, whatever they go through. Some people said that the guns were put over their heads to append signatures on certain documents. I don't want to name them. And then we start wondering, are we really helping our communities, or are we misusing them, or rather abusing them financially? So that is a question that we need to ask ourselves, because the problems are real. The joblessness is real. Food insecurity is real. But the problems were so humongous that even us as researchers or the university could not deal with. So what we reported to the university, where we cannot help, the university will act as conduits with government departments to help solve some of these problems. And so based on our mission and vision as a university, responding to societal needs, I think that is where we need to play a role, capacity building. If we talk about climate change, somebody said they don't know what it is, we can assist with that because we have the expertise. And we are pleading with the national and provincial governments. We are there and we are not being utilized. I've been at WUSU for 2 decades. And I'm sitting with expertise in aquaculture and fish farming. And I've tried my best. Those who are at Mtata Dam have been there giving consultancy services. But one time they bring a specialist in aquaculture, the following year you find he's been transferred to Bishop and there's no replacement. And now the facilities that were refurbished and they were looked so professional and nice, people are using them for braaiing over the weekends. Is that really where we want to go to achieve the United Nations SDG, zero hunger by 2030? I don't think so. So as we sit and deliberate, we need to think of how to help our communities. Even us as lecturers, we train students and they graduate with BSc, MSc in zoology, having done marine science or freshwater ecology or animal physiology. And after a year, you see them picking boxes at pep store because there are no jobs. I want to leave it at there, but if that is what you want to see, then you need to act. And we all need to act responsibly. It breaks your heart that you've trained the students, they earn skills, and you see them picking carton boxes at pep store, at the plaza in Mtata, because there are no jobs. They can't leave the Eastern Cape and go to Joburg. They have no relatives to go to stay with to look for jobs. So after internship 1 year, they are back to pep store. So that is what I want us to take home. As much as we say, yes, we understand from the industry point of view that economic development is also just as good, but we cannot forget about the UN Sustainable Development Goals, zero hunger by 2030, no poverty. And how are we going to achieve no poverty? How are we going to achieve good health or human health and well-being if we don't eat the nutritious fish? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. That was a very nice note to end the workshop. And colleagues, I'd like to thank you very much for today. For me, it has been the most fruitful day. Hearing various perspectives. I think DFFE and Dr. DRDAR providing a very clear sense of where we are going in terms of the strategy and the key interventions, and our colleagues from the co-ops as well as the commercial enterprises. They have given us a very good sense of, if you want to put together a strategy, what are the things to focus on. Thank you to Fundo and Alpo. Coincidentally, these are the kingpins who started the whole Oceans Economy Initiative, aquaculture here in the province. We all came in to join them. It was refreshing to see you facilitating the panels. I found them very insightful, Dr. Kumar and your team. Thank you so much. So today we've really covered a lot of useful material. Now what's left for us tomorrow is to put all this together into action plan. What is it that we need to do? If Mame looked at is he still around? Yeah, he said that he's tired of all this talk. He wants action. It's so refreshing to see a person of that age talking about it's about the mindset. It's not about all of this. Talking about independence, from government. I wish that this house was full of young people to hear him say those things that he said. So thank you so much. Let's please all come back tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll be tying everything together. It's the most important session. Having had all these deliberations, which I think pointed us to the right direction. All the panels, they were very practical. DFFE presentation, both Abongile and Higem, as well as the Fundo, they were very practical. So let's pull all of them together, and I'm sure we'll emerge with a very exciting product. Viewer, is there anything Okay. Colleagues, thank you very much for your time. Travel safely. Please make plans to come to Europe.